Okay, recording has started.
Call is in order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, a moment of silent reflection for everybody that was affected by 9/11. Thank you. Have a seat. Roll call, please.
Karlovic,
Here.
Reichner,
Here.
Reese,
Here.
Brochus,
Here.
Ister.
Are there any public comments on agenda items only at this time?
I have one that was submitted prior to the meeting by Mr. Alan Bug by letter. And he's to Mayor Karlovic and City Council members. I would be in favor of seeing the South 10th Street Bridge preserved and repaired to provide access to the former city dump area, which could be developed as an additional city recreation site. I imagine the bridge's flooring, roadway surface, and the beams underneath are in poor repair due to the lack of maintenance. Depending on its construction, it may be of historic value, as this type of construction is being replaced with concrete stands. I would be willing to serve on a committee to look into its preservation. Sincerely, Alan Bug.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Any other audience comments on agenda items only? Are we reviewing the comments on Facebook?
Alex, oh, that's right,
Oh,
Alex, okay. And no one has chimed in from Zoom.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of July 13, 2020 and September 2, 2020, and the reports for the fire department, police department, treasurer, engineer, code office, and planning commission. Do I have a second? Second.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Ister, Karlovic,
Yes. Proclamation. Whereas in 1988, the United States Congress authorized Hispanic Heritage Month to be observed from September 15 to October 15 to encourage all citizens to recognize, understand, and appreciate the contributions of Hispanic Americans. Whereas Hispanic Americans have served with honor and distinction in every conflict since the Revolutionary War and have made invaluable contributions through their service and dedication to the United States of America. And whereas Hispanic Americans lead corporations, not-for-profit, social movements, and places of learning, they serve in government at every level, from school boards to state houses and from city councils to Congress. Whereas Hispanic men and women play an integral role in the progress and productivity of a great city, state, and country. Whereas according to the U.S. Census Bureau, Sunbury has a Hispanic population of 6.6%. And whereas Hispanic Americans continue to enrich our city and nation's character and shape a common future, they strengthen Americans' promise and affirm the narrative of American unity and progress. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Kurt Karlovic, being mayor of the city of Sunbury, county of Northumberland, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, do hereby proclaim the month of September 15 through October 15, 2020 as National Hispanic Heritage Month. I encourage all to recognize the substantial contributions of Hispanic Americans that build onto the cultural fabric of our great city. I'll make this into a formal motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
No.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner.
Yes.
Jamie Schroeder.
No.
No.
Fire, police, and their Halloween parade.
All right, so fire police.
Now,
Yes, come closer, please.
we aren't planning on having a parade, what we're planning on is like having a reverse parade, like down by the high school and have the fire trucks pull in there, down, all the way down to the commissioner's building. And the firefighters will hand out the candy from the fire trucks to the car with the children in it. That way, you know, this COVID thing will not be jeopardized to kids, and the kids will have something to look forward to. They have a right to have something going for them.
Or do you have this open to like the vendors like before, or is it just strictly the fire departments?
Just the firefighters, fire apparatus, fire police.
Okay.
It's gonna be a first come, first served basis.
Brad, you have something for this?
Yes, my only question is, we don't want to have a parade because of this COVID. But we want to take our firefighters and fire apparatus, put them down at the high school, and have everybody from the city come down and collect candy, put our firefighters in harm of getting this. If we're gonna do this, we might as well just have a Halloween parade and let it go with that.
So from what I'm foreseeing, it seems to be less interaction between the members of the public, even in the fire department. If the fire department personnel is going to be in their apparatus or protective gear, and the pedestrians are only going to be in their vehicles, and no.
Yeah, the trouble with the fire, the actual parade, I think, is the crowds coming together to watch the parade. This would just have the fire department there to hand out.
It's just like a drive-through, kind of like, you're like, you'll be into a car, you're gonna hand them the candy in your car, and they just keep driving through the city.
Right.
And I think anybody that wouldn't want to do it wouldn't have to do it.
It's similar to the way they distributed school meals over.
Yes, yeah.
when they
I
were
was just gonna say, is it gonna be free package? Can it be free package?
Yeah, it's gonna be like the regular, like Snickers bars that are already obvious.
Yep, that's.
Yeah, I think
We're
it's
trying to do that, I can't promise.
Now, is there any
Will be
concerns
bags.
is there any concerns from any of the fire stations in the city regarding this?
A lot of the stations don't want to do it. You know.
What stations don't want to do it, Chief?
You got pretty much the East End's asking me, friendships are asking me questions about it, because if we can't sit there and walk through the streets and hand candy out, why is it okay for them to come to us and we're handing them candy also when you're getting closer in contact with them? I mean, when you're walking through the street, you're pointing on the street, you're not even really.
I think, I believe that the question that was brought up, and when we talked about this before, Chief and stuff, was the safety of the people, the separation, the keeping the distance, to maintain a safe distance of the people standing on the street as everybody's going by. To control that, the crowd, and I think that the crowd at that time would have been more than what the state would have allowed to gather too, if I'm not mistaken. I think that they figured it would be more than 250 people.
Yeah, and even if they wouldn't have allowed it or not, that's a lot of people.
But the distancing was the big thing. You couldn't provide the distancing of the people standing there and like from participating in the parade. Before you throw something out, you might
Everybody
have
runs.
20 kids gathering and they're all fighting for the same stuff. And I think that was the reason of the safety issue of that.
And how much you for this, Brad?
And I think that something like that would be a great idea. If they've done stuff like that in the park before, they had like a trunk thing where trunk or treats. And trunk or treats, anybody that wanted to do that, they could come up and do it. But I don't know how we can do the parade legally with the distancing.
We'd love to have a parade, you guys wanna give it their okay for it? We'll have the parade. The kids need something.
I like your idea. I think the idea you have. And if you guys decide you don't want to do it, then that's, you get who you can.
Yeah, it's like a ball.
Well, Brad wanted the
Yeah.
parade.
I think if you had some, even an organization or two, that's not the fire department, because the library was discussing something similar as well. Instead of doing the boo bash, was doing something like similar to
Drive-through.
that.
Like a drive-through.
So I think it's your, if you're gonna do something, that's your best option.
Mary and Bruce, I think you're doing an excellent job. These kids, like somebody just mentioned, it, they need to get out there and get cooped up. And I think the issue was, Brad, the fact that the crowds, like Chris just said, is the issue there. But maybe other groups like the library want to join up and get in line and pass out their candy.
It's a good question to ask, instead, maybe do it the same night as the library. They're already doing
Because they're
something.
running short and help other,
Entities or people probably wanna help contribute if you're going to do on the same night or organize or say, hey, we have X amount of spots available.
Later on the agenda is a discussion about trick or treating, so I don't know if it would be pertinent to add that into the mix, whether or not we allow children to go door to door. And if we don't allow it, then having a bigger trunk or treat or sort of activity for them.
One thing you might want to look at is if you would have the parade, you would have different organizations in the parade.
Right.
Allow them, if they choose, to be a part of your.
The station.
Good.
Well, for safety reasons, we wanted to leave it with the fire
Well,
department.
then, again, that's it's your parade, it's your call. But,
And then, what precautions are you gonna be taking, because the pedestrians now are gonna be confused slightly, it's gonna be late at night,
There'll
there's gonna be
be,
flashing lights, I'm assuming, because of the fire trucks.
it starts at 7 o'clock, it's for an hour, that's it. And no kids are allowed to walk up because of the COVID.
They have to be in the cars.
Okay, are you gonna have anybody actually directing the traffic to keep them
We got a
slow?
couple, we got a few streets that we're gonna have to close and have fire police there, yes.
Mary, is that the correct route that I have written up there, that the entrance is from 10th Street? That people then turn right onto Walnut, left onto Stadium Drive, and where the, presumably the fire trucks or whatever would be parked, and then they turn right onto Spruce and exit to Fourth.
Yes,
That's what you had kind of described to me before.
about the agenda, yes.
So you're gonna have adequate spacing between each of the entities handing out candy, right?
Yes.
Can I make just a quick suggestion, Mary?
Pardon?
I just want to make a suggestion is if the city's okay with it, why don't you, if you're coming down 10th Street, why don't we just close Walnut Street off so you can line your trucks and stationary people right along Walnut all the way down to the Stadium Drive, and then you have a path of cars going down through. Walnut Street's wide enough to get all the apparatus and stands and people that want to hand stuff out for cars. And I would just close down Walnut Street, period.
How will that affect residents along there?
It's far enough ahead. I think it's far enough ahead that we could get no, it's no different than the parade when we, put it no parking for a couple hours.
It's only an hour. Well,
Yeah.
2 hours.
We get enough advertising now, we can do that. I think that's a great idea.
We planned on closing Walnut Street now. They'll come down 10th, street lights up there. All of Walnut will be closed except for the cars come down with kids and then turn where,
But what I'm saying, Mary, is use Walnut Street as part of your parade route for the cars to come down. And then you can still use Stadium Drive also, because if you decide to allow some of the other vendors from the other places to come in, it could be something nice for them too. Yeah, we'll just close it off up there, like Raspberry and Chestnut, to give traffic a way to get out. But I think if you just close Walnut Street off, that's just as good too, to add that to the closure.
well, if we park all the apparatus or vendors, if we decide, where you go into the school parking lot and down that way, I don't know what that,
You're talking about behind the yellow houses and the
yes,
parking lot there?
yes.
Yeah, so.
Have them park there and then on Stadium Drive and then out Spruce and
And we can open it up, and I think that would be good too.
No, that's school property, correct, that parking area, so has any permission been granted?
no, we didn't ask permission yet, we wanted permission.
So I think we should just steer clear of the school property and keep everything on the Walnuts.
You're not gonna do that,
Why not?
because what if we have outsiders, there is no parade in this surrounding.
But we keep it more organized, you have traffic only one way coming through off of 10th Street, coming down. Walnut Street.
Mayor, I would just say use Walnut Street, and then ask the school permission, because you also have to realize there could be, maybe there's a soccer game or something in the evening, you're gonna have cars already parked in there, so tentatively use most of Walnut Street for what you need to do to line it up, and then overflow down on Stadium Drive, they can go out Spruce Street. If they don't wanna go down Stadium Drive, they can continue out Walnut Street on down the board. I mean, I think that would work better for you too.
And depending on the amount of vendors you get or people you have there, with no parking on there, you can almost put people on those sides.
As I said, both sides, it's wide enough, you can do both sides and have a path for cars. They're only gonna be going slow anyway, so.
It sounds like you guys have a good start on it already, just kind of keep Brad and Steve and all them in the loop, but it sounds like it's gonna be a
We're
good.
trying, we're trying.
Yeah, no, it sounds pretty good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys want to do the vote that you're allowing it, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Brochus,
Yes.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Jamie Schroeder?
I'm happy to be back. I know most everybody in the room already, so I'm going to be doing the CDBG coordinator position for you now. And I look forward to working with you all again. Francis is cutting me off, I guess I'm done. Anybody have any questions while I'm here?
We'll see you back.
Councilman Reichner.
Okay, they don't have their shoes with them, or they don't have a hat. Big deal. You want to see the faces, anything.
Don. Okay, for 824, the general fund of $137,050.94 and liquid fuels of $3,096.35. I make a motion, we pay those bills.
Second.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus.
Yes.
Okay, for 9/14/2020, we have a general fund of $70,920.21 and liquid fuels of $4,765.62. I make a motion, we pay those bills.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Ister.
Yes.
Tax exoneration, we have 6 applicants for the tax exoneration totaling $87.73, and they are all deceased. So I make a motion that we waive those fees.
Reichner,
Yes,
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic.
Yes.
thank you.
Resolution 820.
All right, this is resolution number 2020-31. This is the application for the H2O grant to fund the Susquehanna Avenue Stormwater and Sewer Separation Project. The amount is $3.5 million. You see that the description is there is basically all along Susquehanna Avenue from Reagan to Front is separating sewer and stormwater and supplying an improved capacity, especially for the north end, which is the opportunity zone Celotex property, which is necessary for development.
Make that formal motion.
Second.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner.
Yes,
Small water.
Yep, resolution number 2020-30 is the application for Pennsylvania Stormwater and Sewer Grant. This is for the north end flood wall opening project. The amount is $424,678. This is in relation to the Susquehanna Avenue project. What it is a storm drainage outlet previously filled in with concrete needs to be reopened so that stormwater can again be directed to that outlet, and stormwater only, no sewer, will be able to be released into the river.
Make that formal motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Brochus,
Yes.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
yes,
Reese.
Yes.
This is resolution number 2020-32, the application for the DCED Multimodal Transportation Fund grant. This will now be applied to the Reagan Street Streetscape project. The amount is $1,553,327. The project is the above ground work, the streetscape phase of the Reagan Street flood mitigation project, and includes the paving, sidewalks, curbing, traffic signal at Front and Reagan, and railing, ADA crosswalks.
Make that formal motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
yes,
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Staff consultant.
So the strategic planning program grant contract, final signatures were completed by DCED and final contract with the state for the grant came to us a couple weeks ago. The grant is in effect between July 1st, 20 through June 30th of 22. Our next step is to execute an agreement with the selected consultant firm. Management Partners proposal was selected by council back in January. That is for their initial financial and operational assessment and to also provide us with a 5-year financial plan. Their fee in total is $63,900. The state pays 70%. The city is responsible for 30% via the STAMP program grant. Joel, did you see the response from DCD Legal.
No.
I forwarded it to you,
Okay.
and it is, they did approve and have no problem with the way that we selected the firm.
Then we're good to go.
Make a motion to accept the
Second.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
agreement. Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Ister.
Yes.
Next is the traffic signal maintenance agreement with Troa Electric. They plan to continue the maintenance of traffic signals at the following intersections: Front and Market, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 11th and Market, 4th and Packer, Front and Reagan, Chestnut and 2nd. They comply with the PennDOT publication guidelines to maintenance of traffic signal systems. They charge $250 per intersection for a total of $2,000.
Question. Steve, are you looking at that?
First I'm hearing about it, Jim.
4th and Packard, it's being installed right now. I don't know if you made this year.
I don't know, I, this is the first I'm hearing anything about this.
Is this a time sensitive?
I don't remember this before. Is this a multi-year contract?
This is the first time I run across it as well.
How did we get this information?
So we do get notice from PennDOT, which I sent out to you guys, about we have to maintain for safety inspections and things like that. And this was sent for the first time this year for the traffic signal maintenance agreement from Carl to renew it. So it had to be something that was in place before.
This is a 1-year contract with them? So that 2,000 is an annual? Is it each time they come out to service, is it 250?
It's once a year you have to give an update to PennDOT and have the maintenance.
It's my understanding that they've never done this before and that my department's always done this. So I ask the council to please table this until I get a little more information, please.
Oh, I have no problem with it. I just,
Yeah.
where it is.
I have no idea. Like I said, we have to do a maintenance of the traffic signals. It's a yearly thing. That's something that we've done. So where this is coming from, I have no idea, but I would
I'm just gonna make a
absolutely.
motion to table this into the next council meeting. Second.
On top of that, I'd like to know what kind of insurance coverage they have covering the city. If we're gonna enter an agreement with them in writing, I think the city should be named as an indemnified party of any problems that would arise from any construction work they do, or maintenance work, I should say.
Okay, no, I'm confused. Is this them to do it, or is this a maintenance agreement that we pay this and anything that's done, and that's all we do?
No. You have to do yearly maintenance to the signals per PennDOT. Okay, you have to do your yearly maintenance to the signals. That's something in my department's inside. We've done this before.
Okay.
Okay, where it's being pushed to the outside into a contractor, I don't know, but I just need some time to look into this. Again, it's the first.
7 years ago, this is the first I see.
Yeah.
So we have a motion to table.
Yes.
Second. Yeah, whoever.
Who's second? Reichner? Reichner?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Brochus?
Yes.
Ister? Karlovic.
Yes. Police chief Herrick.
We were given it's a 2002, I believe, Ford utility truck from the North Highway Central Safety DUI program. They're getting rid of it. We brought it down, had Steve Welker and his crew look over it. He said it's in great shape. We're going to utilize it for our DUI checkpoints, traffic checkpoints. We're going to stock it with some crime scene equipment. So when we have a major crime scene, we have all of our stuff in one area. It's free. All we got to do is do the transfer, and we can do that upon approval of the council, and I'll have them get a hold of Jill in, and we can do the transfer then.
Make the motion.
What does the police department have planned for this vehicle?
Well, it's like, again, I said, it's for DUI checkpoints, traffic safety, some community outreach stuff. When we have some of our events, we'll be able to have something to put everything in and kind of have it. So it's going to be, it's a very, very solid piece of equipment for us to get. And it's free. What's that?
What was the reason why we have to leave the last
Oh, it was junk. It was bad. It was like, that one was a lot older when we had that. So I think it's going to be good for us, again, for the community outreach just itself. We're not going to do anything major to it right now. We're going to switch out the light bar. We have spare light bars. We're going to switch out the light bar, tinker with some things a little bit, worry about decals later on. But For now, I mean, it's gonna help us, because we have a DUI trailer since we have one of the officers is the DUI coordinator for the county. We also have a utility trailer that will haul for our drone program we're starting up. So we'll have a lot of this. Huh? What?
The trailers.
The trailers? Yeah, they're like from the DUI association. So, yeah, they're not ours. They're not
Where are
ours.
you planning on storing this?
This is one we can rent for now. We can park it. We have plenty of room in the parking lot in the Edison Plaza. Once we ever get the other project done, it'll be parked right at the police department in the back. Plenty of room.
I just want to make a motion to accept this.
Second.
One quick question.
Sure.
Are we going to take those decals off, even though we're not gonna change it around? Is there any problem with us?
When you bring it down, Yes, some of the stuff we're gonna remove from it. Yeah, I've been working with Steve. I think he's been helping us out. He's got to do a couple things to it that make sure it's pretty good. But yeah, we're gonna work with the city barn. Those guys have been working with us a lot for a lot of our maintenance lately. So.
Grace,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Ister, Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichtner.
Yes.
Mayor, if I can just interject real quick, PCCD board we received approval from PCCD for the new car cameras and body cams. We're just waiting for the final award letter for that, but we were approved by the PCCD, so we're just waiting for that. We're hoping if that comes within the next couple of weeks, we should have everything installed up and running by the end of the year.
And how much was that grant for?
That was, I think it was close to $40,000. Yep.
Councilman Brochus.
Earlier in the year, we lost one of our men to circumstances, so we've been trying to hire someone, but COVID hit, so we finally got around to actually getting around to interviews. So, does anybody have any questions before I make the motion to hire Brian Bridges? No questions? All right. Oh, you're fine?
The background and everything, has everything come through?
No, I was gonna put in there pending clearances, everything comes back clean, then he can start. I just want to try to get him on there ahead of time, so we don't have to wait for the next meeting because, you know, people taking time off, so on and so forth, we're just getting further and further behind DPW work and the list around town. So once everything comes back clean, and he can start. I say, well, I just want to get the ball rolling here. Once everything comes back, he can start.
I'll second it.
Well, I gotta make the motion first. Okay. So I make the motion to hire a part-time worker, Brian Bridges, at 1250. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Brochus.
Yes.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichtner,
Yes.
Reese.
Sorry, just looking at that rate. That's normal rate. Everyone else starting that right now, new standard for part-time?
Yes.
I think it has been changed.
Yes.
And yes. Just so.
No, that's fine.
But do you have any current employees under that rate?
We currently do, as the new budget comes along, we want to get him up to that, if not more than that, because of, coming into new budget season like we wanted to earlier. So yes, we will like to have him up, if not above that.
All right, Ms. Ocker, SMA.
So it's in your packets there. This is related to the municipal authority's application for a increase in their operating hours and their daily tonnage limit. There is a potential for increased traffic to and from the transfer station. So there's a traffic information report there. It's from the environmental assessment. And what the municipal authority is asking for is for the city to provide a letter acknowledging that we are able to accommodate the increase in traffic flow and that we are willing to support the municipal authority's application.
I'll make that motion.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Chief, do you have any concerns regarding the extra traffic in that end of town?
No.
The question I have, Mark, do we know what hours are going to expand?
We're not expanding hours, we're just expanding the tonnage. We're limiting to 100 tons. They want to go to 300 tons because the packers are using it instead of running all the way up.
Are there, if I have the operations, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
They could do that. I remember we voted on this before. It just gave them the ability that if they wanted to do that, they could, but they're not.
And the same thing.
That's not their intent.
And Steve, what about you for the streets portion? Because it says it's going from 100 tons of waste per day to 300 tons per day. What kind of issues are we gonna have for our streets in that end of town?
We shouldn't have any. The most you're gonna have is a possible backlog right at the Spruce and 4th Street. You might have a little bit there by the cemetery, right at that stop sign. I don't foresee any serious issues.
All that extra tonnage and heavy machinery going through every day?
But Kurt, let me add to that. If you notice, what we just discussed about 7 days a week, 24 hours. They're putting everything in here because the application that you're working off of right now is restricted to the point. You would think all week long, you run 6 days, 600 tons a week. They don't allow you to run 120 tons a day. The week to the next day, they bring the other 20 tons in. They're not maxing out their overall the 600 tons. They're maxing out the daily tonnage. So they're going this route here to cover all the futures because DEP now has been clamping down because literally they've been having to shut down 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Send people back home until the next morning. The next day, let's say is a Wednesday, way under the 100 tons. DEP looks on a daily basis, which sometimes you wonder, I don't understand the philosophy, if it all goes in the landfill that week. So, just that.
I think as far as the traffic goes, Steve, they're just increase the number of trucks that go up to waste management. Right?
Yeah, the only thing that I would be concerned about when they're going to the increased tonnage is if they're maintaining just on a single scale. You know what I mean? If they're bringing through more trucks to dump and they're bringing, more, you might have a little bit like right now when we dump garbage down here in the morning when we pick up garbage. There's times you have to sit for 40 minutes now. So that'd be my only concern, that it might even extend that line longer possibly, but I don't think it will. I really don't, because you have your garbage haulers, they collect on opposing days and that type of stuff, so they're not overwhelming the station and everything. So if there's an issue, we'll deal with it.
And this, what I would get at is this, the second and Spruce Street would be with Wayne Penn Township hauling the stuff from there to their fill, right?
It hasn't been an issue
Yeah,
at this
no,
point.
but I'm saying.
No, because they haul them out in big trucks. So,
Yes.
there's only a couple, even if you up the tonnage, you're still not taking that many trucks up.
And we want to more, and they come in. They come in early in the morning. They're there sometimes at 6
Yes.
o'clock in the morning. Actually.
Yeah.
A second.
Who made the motion? Heister. Heister.
Yes.
Karlovic.
Yes.
Reichtner.
Yes.
Brochus.
Yes.
Reese. I just.
Next, you have a letter from the Susquehanna River Valley Dental Health Clinic. It's on Market Street. We've previously approved 2 spaces to reserve for them on Market Street for clinic patients so that they can have eyes on their patients that have checked in for their services. They would like to continue that. That was until August 31st with the other resolutions. So they would like to continue to have the spaces so the staff can see their patients when they have checked in.
And this was at no cost to them?
Correct.
And we received one complaint.
I have not heard any complaints.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Reichtner.
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
Brochus.
Yes.
Heister. Karlovic.
Yes.
Next is the first reading of bill number 2020-15, Planning Commission. This would be a repeal and replace of ordinance number 1056, Planning Committee adopted May 21st, 1984. This will officially create the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission sitting now has reviewed the draft ordinance and are good with it. And they also, with the caveat, request that the city members continue in their current terms. It establishes their powers and duties, and like I said, it's been reviewed and supported by the current commission.
Make that motion.
Second.
Who wants it?
Rick Kendall, I'll give it.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Ister, Karlovic,
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Next is the first reading of bill number 2020-16, earned income tax. This is a repeal and replace of ordinance number 937, which is Article 2 of Chapter 151 in the city code entitled taxation. This came about due to the codification, editorial, and legal review. And so the draft was written accordingly. It defines necessary terms, including the tax collection committee and tax collection district. This is not a tax levying ordinance. It is the basis for assessing the tax.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Ister, Karlovic,
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Next is the letter of support for the Shikellamy School District. Letter was drafted last week after conversations among council members and with the school board in anticipation of their consideration of allowing up to 500 spectators at the stadium for high school football events. The letter offers the opinion that with specific safety requirements established, outdoor setting is capable of ensuring social distancing along with use of masks as safe as any other venue where people are gathering. It assures the district that the city will not curtail spectator attendance at school functions on school property. And then there was a just-in ruling by a federal judge today declaring limits unconstitutional. This would be the official council vote on providing the letter of support to the school district.
I would ask, and Joel, you can, so there's one section there that says we have to endorse any school policy. I know that it was ruled unconstitutional. I'm sure it's going to get appealed. We don't know where all that goes. That section's not in there. If the PIAA is fighting it now too, is there a difference that way? It's not us actually saying we're endorsing. It's just saying you do what you want. You're on private property. It's your property. We're not going to stop you. Instead of us actually coming out and saying do it. Does it make a difference in your mind?
I don't think we're saying we're doing it, we just support it.
If we endorse it, are we liable anyway?
That's where I'm getting at.
I'm reading it again.
We use any code.
I'm sorry, Kevin, I didn't hear you.
Would we use any code of reimbursement?
Because we know what happened today. We wouldn't know what's going to happen 2 weeks from now.
Exactly.
If we just remove that one sentence.
I don't have a problem if you want to remove that one sentence, if that's what you're asking. I don't necessarily think it makes you liable, makes the city liable. At the same time, I don't think it detracts any from the message of the letter,
So remove the entire sentence further all the way down the tape.
Yes, I would recommend. Keep the letter as it is, just remove that one sentence. So you do what you want.
Make that motion.
I'll make that.
And Joel, just another quick question on that,
Sure.
not that sentence, but
Mhm.
that says the school can have as many people as they want,
We
correct?
did not limit it to 500, and we
Okay,
did not
so-
say specific to football. We said
Anything.
any soccer, cross country, tennis, anything.
So,
But we have to keep in mind, if the school allows 500 or more at the stadium, it's not all going to be on the school property, it's going to be on the city property, gangled on the outside of the stadium.
No.
That's if they don't allow them to say it, that's going to happen.
That's what's gonna happen if they don't,
regardless, it's gonna happen.
they're gonna be all over the place down there. And
This
this way,
perfect.
the school can kind of control it a little bit.
Maybe I
Say, listen, we're gonna open it up, we're gonna social distance inside, there's plenty of room down there. We have one of the biggest stadiums in the area.
Are you
For 6,000 seats.
Mayor,
Are you in talks with their school chief regarding?
Yeah, I talked to the superintendent, we talked about it, and it's better fit for everybody all around, because at least we can control it. But you're still gonna have people sitting on the dike and not wanna go in. We're not forcing people to go in. But we're also giving them the option.
Choice whether to go in or not, and like you said, the school district can decide whatever number they want, but 500 now, 250 next week, it's their choice, correct?
yes, and in fact, I was at the Central Mountain Shikellamy football game the other night. Central Mountain only gave out tickets to a certain amount of parents. There were people all around the stadium on the mountain in lifts. I mean, there were people everywhere, but not on school property. This allows those people to get on school property, but as School Director Schreck just said, the stadium at the Shikellamy High School seats up to or over 6,000 people. So as long as social distancing, what we're saying here is as long as you can achieve social distancing, take proper precautions.
And I think the school's actually
Right.
promoting that. So we still want everybody to wear masks if they can until they sit down and kind of.
And it's not our decision.
And it's not, that's exactly what this says.
Right.
Back to
Yep,
it.
that's exactly what this says. It's not our decision. However, we're not going to take any action which would, say you can't do this.
I know you're involved with like students, same with you, Councilman. What's the students' opinion on this?
Students love it, the parents love it. I mean, we had an event on Saturday with field hockey and soccer, and parents would feel that they could watch their athlete compete safely, be there. I'm happy the school district, well, the city school district are trying to allow at least parents of band, cheerleaders, whatever event may be, at the school function.
If I could ask, this is just for outdoor sporting events?
Yes.
And the reason for my question is, now that you're opening this, in the winter, is the beer gonna say, hey, you allow this for outdoor sporting events, why can't we hold a play with a certain amount of people inside?
That's not our issue. It's the school district.
Yeah, it's a school district.
That's all for the school district.
So that's just saying it's your choice to do what you want.
The number that you feel safe.
Right, I'm fine with this.
I'll make a motion.
June second,
Brochus,
Yes.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichtner,
yes,
Reese.
Second reading, fireworks.
Yes. Bill number 2020-14, fireworks. This is new legislation that will revoke and replace any prior ordinances related to the same subject. So it's regulating the use of fireworks in the city of Sunbury. It defines the consumer display, novelty fireworks, and also occupied and temporary structures. It sets the conditions and prohibitions for use, sale, and storage of consumer fireworks. There's a prohibition on municipal property, including streets, sidewalks, and parks. Storage of consumer fireworks and temporary structures is limited. The display fireworks require permits, and there are provisions for that. And the authority of Sunbury police officers to confiscate materials. Violations and penalties beginning with second-degree misdemeanor, second or third-degree felony. I have had no feedback from the public on this.
This mirrors the state, the law that was just passed not too long ago. Also, when it says the violations of penalties, that has to do with the sale and storage of, not actually firing them off. It's actually do with like the larger vendors using those. That's what that is. It's not for the small things that we are kind of trying to address with the fireworks throughout the city with residents doing it. So, but this mirrors the state.
Actually, that's not true. This is for consumer fireworks. There's $100 to $1,000 fine for anybody using consumer fireworks in violation of the provisions of this chapter. It's a summary offense.
Correct.
So that is people setting off fireworks.
Yeah, no, I'm saying.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Felony misdemeanor doesn't apply.
No.
That's
The
what I'm saying.
second-degree misdemeanor does not apply.
That applies to
No.
something different with the state. That's new to the
We
state.
are in agreement.
What's gonna happen with the material that's confiscated by the PD?
We will, most likely, like anything else, we'll have a controlled burn and blow them up.
That's a lie.
Yeah, we'll save it for Tuesday.
We'll cross, I mean, but it's a lot of times you take it to, a lot of times we can take it to the gap. something
Because
like
I
that,
don't
and
want to
make
ensure
sure-
this isn't being stored in any of the city buildings.
Well, eventually we'll have to be, if we can find, but we haven't had any of those issues, that's what I'm saying.
Well, I know
That's far in.
we may have not had those issues, but it's a foreseeable issue if this is passed. We'll start confiscating these fireworks. I want to ensure that it's not going to be placed in the new police department, for instance, or
So
city
it can
hall.
properly stored.
Well, I mean, like, we'll have to look at that where we're in the store if we do get a large sum. A lot of times we take them to the gap and, the National Guard blows them up for us.
They have ordinance experts at the gaps, the state police have them as well.
Yeah.
But if you look, Mayor, in section, it's the next to last page, section 6, in part A, the owner, even though we may take them, and when I say we, the police department may take and confiscate the materials, the owner shall remain responsible for the storage and, if necessary, the destruction of these fireworks, meaning we can rent a suitable place to store them
It goes
until
back on the
such
owner.
time as, and we can charge the owner for it. It was specifically written in that.
Did we, I was just saying, I don't remember the exact, it's on here, did we have to decide the exact timeline? I don't remember what the minutes said, so long ago now. It was like we discussed the time when they're allowed to start, when they're allowed to stop, what that was. I remember we said it like,
I think it was from Memorial Day till the
Celebration.
It was like July 15th.
Like, did we just put like a date, July 15th?
No, I think it was the second Saturday.
Is the date
The celebration, it was the celebration.
The date, we did decide on dates.
Yeah.
It's not set forth specifically in the,
Oh, I remember you said.
we
We can
can
look back to the minutes to get.
we can look back 2 minutes to get it, yeah.
I'll make a motion with that.
Second.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus.
Yes.
Deed agreement.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, that's yours.
Okay, I didn't want to interrupt you. We prepared a deed between the city and Sunbury Revitalization Inc. In order to transfer ownership of the warehouse building on Chestnut Street. We are doing that with the knowledge that the intention is to demolish the same and turn it into a parking lot. There were certain ideas floated and a agreement was reached whereby I also prepared a lease, which I know is coming up next, but I'm going to do them both at once because it only makes sense. So basically the lease says that we're leasing the warehouse from Sunbury Revitalization Inc. for a period of time until we receive notice that they're going to knock it down, basically. The lease would be for the total sum of $1, and we may use the property for storage purposes. We can't sublease it. We'll remain liable for anything that we would do. They'll remain liable for anything they do. But basically, it says we can continue to use the warehouse until such time as they knock it down for the storage purposes that we're currently using it for. And they have to give us 45 days notice of that.
Once this lease is signed in place, they assume responsibility for the liability of that building.
Everything except what we might do it. So if we, for example, if we store dynamite in the basement, we're liable. I know we're not going to do that, but that's the easiest.
So we're no longer liable for the overall maintenance of the building.
Correct. They are. No, I'll keep it. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
The only thing that was had to still be decided was a date to do this transfer.
Well, to be clear, we can approve the deed, okay? We can approve signing the deed, and we can approve the form of the lease. However, deeds are done, and the transfer is done the minute the mayor would sign this and it would be notarized, okay? It doesn't have to be filed at the courthouse for it to be done, okay? We want the lease signed by Sunbury SRI to sign this lease before we sign this deed, okay? That's why I didn't put a time period on it. If you remember, we're gonna ask that the lease be signed by SRI. We'll sign the lease. We'll then sign the deed, file it at the courthouse, and
There's a next item will be tomorrow, so I'll bring that there. So maybe else has something in touch with you, just to finalize. the whole-
they have my email.
You looking for motions?
Yes, sir.
I'll make the motion on the deed agreement. Is that what we're doing, just one?
The deed and the lease.
The deed and the lease, all right.
Should the motion for the deed be contingent upon the signing of the lease by SRI?
Right, right, exactly. That's what, yeah. He's making a motion to put forth what I just said. Make a second, Josh.
I'll second it. Jim didn't want to.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese, Brochus,
Yes.
Ister.
Yes.
Joe, your microphones. It's your request. My name's on there, but microphones. Talk about the topic. Since the last meeting, I have spoken with treasurer, and there is no issue with providing the city administrator with read-only access to microphone.
And also, she received reading print, that's it. So I'll make that motion.
Kevin took care of it. Hey, he's the man.
Okay, Kevin, PD renovation? Construction loan? NMB proposal?
Kevin,
Kevin.
Kevin, you're up.
Oh,
North
You guys filed
National
the,
Bank.
You guys probably got everything in the packet from Oregon National Bank. State what they want to do for us. 1.125 million, 30 years, first 5 years at, what is it, 1 point on in front of me, 1 point something, 10 years at 2 point something. So after 5 years, we can turn around and renegotiate the interest, but there won't be no payment until 2022. So we can borrow money, the funds draw down, and it's a drawdown thing, and you do not make a payment on this loan until April, May, or whatever. Tom and you guys decide you want to pay it in 2022.
And then what is the yearly fee we're looking at?
It's all going to depend on how much money you borrow off of that and how much breaks out in 30 years for it. So
So we found out a couple of things that we were asking last time, which is good. So it's a line of credit essentially.
line of credit,
That's
draw
awesome.
down, one-time drawdown, that's it. Once it's drawn down, there's no replacing it.
But we don't need to take all of it, we don't have to take all of it.
Don't take all of it, don't take all of it.
And the interest rates from the last time, they didn't change. They kept it
No,
the
it's the
same.
same thing. The only thing he changed was the format of the payment could be paid in, like I said, 2022.
And by then, we should, or debt ratio should be.
That ratio, we're losing bill in January of this year coming up. And then we have 2 payments for the land, so we can basically maybe pay that off next year, it's not that much. So we have a clean bill of debt going into 2022, so.
What's your recommendation between the 5 and 10?
I just
What I
go
would
with 5 years and then like I was in the treasurer's office in 5 years, sit down and talk to Tom again, like I did years ago, James. With the construction loan, we came down and renegotiated a lower amount of interest on it. It's, it's a reporting bill with the bank and.
So you think, I mean, that's the only thing that's where the lowest interest rate environment would be better than right now.
Right.
So you still think that,
I still say the way the economy's going and the interest rates, I think 5 years at 1.2. And even if not, it's not going to go, it's only going to be, it might go up, yeah, it might go up, but basically we hope not,
I don't think the interest rates can go any further down than they are now.
It's almost a negative rate.
Exactly.
But it's almost, it's to the point where, even if it does go up a 0.5%, which was better, it's better than 2 point, whatever, it's 2.22.
This is less than 0.5% to lock it in for the next 5 years.
Two things.
$1 million, 0.5%, change of risk.
I agree, but in 5 years, we get a 3.5%.
And you might have 5 years, you might get the same rate. I mean, we did this 20 years ago, we negotiated that, no, we did that 7 years ago with them, I came in the treasurer's office. And I got a 0.5% lower 7 years ago. Lloyd Bank was willing to do anything it possibly can to us. We're going to treat it as well as the state local bank.
Well, are you sure we should have that little extra security buffer for 10 years at a fixed rate of 2.5?
That's your guys' choice, not mine. You can do whatever you want.
75% of the national prime rate, we can't negotiate a subsequent
You
rate.
might have it paid off in 10 years, you never know. You get a $500,000 grant that, the chief's talking about, and then you're going to borrow $500,000 with that. You might be able to pay that off in 10 years at 50, 60 grand a pop. It's done and over with,
With the debt that the federal government is running up now, they can't really raise interest rates as I'm bankrupt themselves. Well, I'm not saying lower. Kurt made a good point. By taking the 10-year, you always go to another bank and finance and pay that one this month. So even at 8 years down the road, it's a better deal out there to come back and pay this month. But at least by going to 10 years, you know what you have, and you know your payments for the next 10 years.
So that's what I was saying with the 10, that's why I was leaning towards the 10 rate.
But then the other problem is, like we discussed with Dan there, grant wise. Okay. Now, Brad, you keep saying about the $500,000.
Yeah, I talked to a gentleman from Senator Gordon's office. It's what Point Township and Mount Carmel did. It's a RACP grant. And you could start drawing down on that line of credit. And if we approve that we get that RACP for next year, you can go back and pay off.
RACP's about to open right now already for next year.
They're not open yet. That's what he told me. He said,
It's just because the NSR is going through right now.
Yeah.
Just don't.
We're all matching grants, right?
yeah, they're matched like a 50-50.
First of all, we have to spend the money first before we get reimbursed by that fee.
Right.
Okay.
Next thing is the 1.125. I like to see a total breakout where that money being spent. We haven't got an update lately. I know you.
No, I think that number was based off of what our initial projections were. Since this is line of credit, we don't
million of scrap.
You worried that they won't go for the grants at that point?
And they're not gonna work this hard.
Who was that?
Us.
There you go, you have a goal.
Yes, you do.
My concern is
We
because
can't not have the money though, we have to, we have bills that need to be paid pretty soon.
This includes paying off the current mortgage on. the
No.
property.
No, there's no
that's
need
not.
to do that now,
Tom
because.
Tom and I
they moved
discussed
along.
that, it's either win-win or lose-lose situation, it doesn't matter whether they come out. But you can remember, you're paying $125,000 for 10-year interest more than you were in 3 years.
Yeah, now it makes no sense to pay off the new mortgage,
No,
right?
I
Because
agree with
if
that.
they didn't let us move the payment, like if they didn't let us move the payment 22, I
But you
could see
figure
that.
by the time you make this payment in 2022, you're only gonna have 2 payments paid on that.
You only have one left.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it makes no sense to pay off that. I agree with one time. I'm conservative in the sense of saving the lower interest rate. for the 10 year.
If we go for the sun, remember, though, if you fall $1 million short of registry, we're gonna be hope for that money too, just asking, we're gonna have to find $1 million if we don't find another money for registry.
No, because that project up there, we'll just be cutting back. Because a big chunk of that shortfall is the municipal authorities. I told Chris earlier.
Okay, just want to make sure you're not going $2 million back, you know what I mean?
No, we might as well, Kevin,
You know how to-
you're the
you know how to
hero,
spend
right?
it, man.
I
You
know
know how
you're
to
the hero, but
So are we ready for a motion? I make a motion to accept option B.
I'm concerned with the fact that borrowing this money now, I'm not interested. I haven't, when was the last time you talked to the architect?
Friday.
How come we don't know what's going on?
I can tell you what's going on, sure.
I'm in charge of buildings around here, nobody's talked to me.
The only thing we did on Friday, he was coming in and just talking about what stuff we were gonna move from the building, that was it. We met months ago for the, kind of, some of the design, but we can set something up with you, Jim, it's not a
I
problem.
think someday council will
Sure.
know what's going on.
Sure.
Absolutely. We're waiting still on final drawings, right?
They're pretty much, most of that's done. We're tweaking back and forth a couple things, like not adding, but kind of repurposing a certain room here and there and just adding stuff. But I mean, I'll set something up with you, Jim. I agree with you.
But now back to the building, after you have it all tweaked, let's suppose council wants to make a modification, we're gonna be charged for the tweak.
I think it's just a fee that that 40-some thousand that you paid, that's part of the plan to get the plans
What
done.
I'm getting at, I think council should understand what's going on.
I agree.
We have the liability to pay for this thing.
Okay.
Responsible.
I will absolutely set up something up with Ted and we'll go up and meet with them.
Kevin, one question.
You said it's a one-time drawdown, so we can only take.
No, you can draw down, you can only draw out, like you draw out $500,000, you pay back $400,000, you can't draw the other $400,000 now. So once you draw 1.125, you're done. That's one time drawing.
Okay, right, set up a work session for the council and even the architect, that would just to finalize the final review.
Yeah, that's
And then
fine.
If there's any input, then we'll give it at that work session.
Yeah, we can do that.
I'll still second the motion.
Ister,
No.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus.
No.
So I can tell them at National Bank, we're going for 10 years. Draw,
2.5.
and tell them to get a hold of you. or-
That, yes, and Tom has my information. Thank you.
Kevin, good job. No, team effort, guys.
Councilman Ister, Light Barn thing.
Joe, I know you're reviewing the light barn agreement here, cameras in the ring.
I did, yes.
You had some comments last time you and I spoke.
Those comments I received today from Ms. Ocker, the live barn venue agreement, which is currently in front of you, and I did review it. My concerns were mainly relative to the city's liability and reliability under the contract as I had previously seen it, because there were outside sources that were going to be named as venue owner instead of the city, if that makes sense to you.
Can you explain what this is?
So it's a subscription-based live streaming platform for hockey rinks. And so they install these cameras in various hockey rinks. And what it allows is for a subscription to live stream the events at that rate. So it also, so the live barn folks are responsible for installing the cameras and maintaining the equipment. And then they run the live stream, and they also install the cellular or whatever it runs over. And then at that rate has a specific code that goes with it. So when somebody signs up for a subscription, they enter that code. Now, then the rate gets some money back from somebody purchasing a subscription. And so this will allow, right, especially right now, when we are limited with parents being able to be indoors at the rink to see their kids, they can live stream their kids' games at home or on their device in the parking lot. And so that's what it's about. And youth hockey requested the city to consider this, especially for their kids' games. But it could be used for adult league. We can block out times where the cameras are not active. So if you don't want to have it active during public skate, where there might be some children that they don't want to have on camera, you can do that.
Who is the venue, who's going to be the venue owner?
Well, the city will now. There was a proposal that basically the money would go elsewhere and that the city would maintain the liability and let somebody else have the money. And I had a problem with that idea. However, that is all taken out of the agreement at this point. At this point, the city is the venue owner under this current agreement that they've proffered to us. And basically the city has all rights to make decisions under the agreement. That being said, there are some terms of the agreement which council may want to take under consideration before we vote on this immediately, okay? For example, this is a 6-year deal. If we okay it for the next 6 years, okay? It's also, we get paid 30% of the revenues generated from memberships, et cetera, which I mean, it's all fine and good. I'm not here to tell you it's a great idea or a bad idea. I don't think it's a bad idea, to tell you the truth. However, I'd feel more comfortable as your solicitor if perhaps, when are you making those? Now, when do they start skating? Well, when is our next meeting?
2 weeks.
28.
Would you maybe consider, well, I don't know.
Well, let me just clarify, this is not on the agenda as a voting item.
Oh, it's not.
Put it on as a discussion.
It's a discussion. Then
But I will point out also that, of course, the hockey leagues are anxious to get it.
going. My point is,
What's your concern?
you guys don't know what the heck's going on with this thing. That's my concern. Everybody said, what is this? Okay. I'd feel more comfortable if you let me do a real quick recitation by email or whatever to everybody. This is what they're proposing and the terms of the proposal. So everybody knows what we're talking about before we enter into a 6-year agreement on my say-so. Does that make sense?
The thing is, how's it going to be, how are the numbers going to be controlled?
What numbers, Rick?
Okay, now you say the contracts or whatever, I'm sure somebody is going to pay to view this somewhere.
Yes.
online.
Yes, you're gonna buy a membership.
How are you going, who's going to determine, or how are we going to know?
How many subscriptions?
How many, right?
That's part of what I'm telling you. Those are one of the, that's a question I don't have an answer to right now. And those are the kind of questions, if I run through this a day this week and give you guys a brief recitation of what's in it, then you guys can shoot your questions at me. We can pass them right along to Live Barn. We have direct contact with them, get those answers, and I'll feel a lot more comfortable about you guys voting on it at the next meeting.
Sounds great. Instead of having out-of-town parents and stuff all out in the country.
I'm looking out here for the 6 years. Is there any balance for us?
No, not really. I didn't see it, put it this way, Jim.
Okay.
I read it when we got it 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. I looked it over today and made sure the stuff that I didn't like wasn't in there, but I didn't read it to memorize it today. So I'll read it.
Some homework, find out who has this.
Yes.
From Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Makes it phone call.
Yep.
And there is, what are the ramifications if Peabody stops up here? We don't have it.
Nothing. We don't have anything to lose. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's a bad deal. I really don't. I think it's a good idea and not just for parents during COVID, actually grandparents that live in Florida or aunt and uncle that lives in New York, whatever, they can get a membership and watch their nephew or grandson or whoever, or grandniece, whatever, play hockey or do figure skating or whatever they may be doing at the rink. You can do it with the wrestling, you can do it with any number of things that you do with that property. And so I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm saying I'd be more comfortable if you guys knew what it was all about before you voted.
So it wouldn't have to be used for only the events that the ice is on.
No, that's my understanding. Anything. Yeah, roller derby, they talk about that, they talk about various things. So, I mean, when you're looking at a 6-year deal, I'm more comfortable if everybody reads through it and gets it.
Joel, quick question.
Yeah.
So for the youth hockey stuff, I mean, are these teams going to be made aware that their games are going to be broadcast and their kids are going to be filmed?
Yes, and in fact, that's up to them. Live Barn, I was real careful about that part. They take all the liability. Okay, they're gonna have a large insurance policy naming us as a named insured, et cetera, et cetera. So they would have all the liability for those things. They also have the liability if some kid trips over a wire or something that's there. You know what I mean? So yes, we're covered for that.
All right, next up, Councilman Brochus.
Okay, the South Street Bridge, I'll make it real quick. I was talking with Steve and Jim. Obviously, we have 48 acres of property over there that the city owns. We would like to get access to. What we want to get at this point is how do we want to use that bridge? Do we just want to use it for, you just walk across it, that's it? You want to be able to take vehicles across it? So that's like, we want to figure out how we want to use that bridge so we can go back and talk about it and go apply for grants and so on and so forth.
I was under the impression that bridge is privately owned.
That is, so the person who owns that, I'm not gonna say their name, but they wanna know what our plan and what our usage is for that bridge. So if we come back and say we wanna be able to drive across this and get vehicles across for other events, that's what they would like to know, so they know, okay, what our intentions are. If our intentions are just, all right, we wanna have a spectator bridge, we wanna walk across it, just so they know.
And
About 19 years ago, Joel, they had a flood mitigation, like one that was deemed as a backflow bridge. There might be some stipulations, I said on that board back then, what you can do, and what you can't do with that bridge.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
That's
you.
what
I did talk to the individual also, or one of the individuals who are in ownership of the bridge at this time. They seem very willing and actually accommodating to work with the city regarding the use of the bridge. My understanding is, much like Mr. Bubb's letter, there's apparently some very unique and historical architectural design in this bridge, which is worthy of being kept, if you will. So I think that Josh, or Councilman Brochus, I should say, is doing a very good thing here in trying to ascertain what we can come up with as far as uses for this bridge to get to that property. And that would then allow the council or myself or whoever you want to go back and speak with the individuals that own the bridge in order to come up with some kind of agreement that would keep everybody happy and give us full use of the land on the other side.
I would make the recommendation that it should be accessible by vehicles because there's no parking on that end of the street.
That's you just start a conversation. Yeah, so they know what our intentions are. So that's fine for when we want to be able to drive a vehicle across our, for example, T tags, whatever, for city use, and obviously future use for the public. We just want to make sure we can take that to the owners so they know what we are aware.
One more thing that might be of interest. 4 or 5 years ago, I checked with DEP on the site itself.
Your apartments are still.
They don't have that registered as anything. And that
Plus,
was-
we can do that.
If you find anything, remove
But
what you find.
The
It's
problem
not is like you have to go to.
Right.
Same way we did Raspberry Avenue project as well as
And,
that.
you know, I gotta-
40 some acres there.
Understood.
Neither one of them.
Understood. Right, right. So there are uses for that land is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. If you dig down and find anything, you just have to remove them.
Yes.
From now to the end of the year, we'll take, next time Lee's there is in town, which is the engineer. Get him scheduled to come down there, spend maybe 2 to 3 hours of time he needs, look the bridge over, see what a guesstimation cost to refurbish the bridge. Totally, if it's as historical value, totally. And then figure out what we're gonna use the property on the other side, because we're gonna apply for a grant. You just can't say we're gonna need a grant for $300,000 to rebuild the bridge, so a pedestrian can walk across it and go home. You have to come up with something.
Right. No, I
Steve
agree.
and have
We
talked
need to have a
about-
plan.
Yeah.
And say we have 48 acres, we can use it for
Brush.
brush, okay? And go back to the county and utilize this end of the county as brush drop off. Fill out an application with the city and the county to utilize that piece of parcel of land, rebuilding the piece of the bridge itself.
Sure,
So
sure, yeah, there's
we'll
all
get the
kinds of.
engineer and do a study on it, come up with a guesstimation and go from there.
Yep.
Any other,
Fine.
so any other questions? So we can talk or whatever, getting back to the owner about, we want to be able to get a vehicle across for whatever purpose the city thinks you.
Exactly, and maybe tell them that we're gonna have Mr.
Ziegler.
Ziegler?
Lee.
Okay, Lee,
Come down and check it out.
come down, check it out, is that okay with them, and go from there?
All right,
sounds
Get a report.
Well, next time you talk to them, you have to understand, we're going to acquire the bridge. We're going for grants, he can't own it, we fix
Yeah,
it.
No, I agree.
Yeah, that's what he just wants, like I said, if we want to try to preserve the bridge.
And
okay,
we can
great.
even do a right of first refusal kind of thing, we can do all kinds of things.
If you have that LLC set up, they can, so if they have this ownership that they wanted, we could have that third party LLC that could get the grant going and fix the bridge.
The 501c3 that we talked about earlier, that's true,
If they really didn't want to like go to the bridge.
but they're gonna have a much harder time getting any money.
So
And the
I just don't know what their personal connection is.
It's the
the
architect.
architectural design.
The people that own are into ironworking and things, so.
How many people can say own a bridge?
You have to do that.
All right, Kevin, police pension.
Yes, all you have to do is this has to just be mentioned at the meeting. The police pension envelope for 2021 is $80,061. Summary non-uniform for 2021 is $143.73.
What was last year's non-uniform?
Non-uniform was $128. And last year's police was 70.
78.
70.
Went up.
It was 78 something. Yes.
Maury Banks doing an excellent job.
They're doing a
Under
good
your
job.
guidance, chief.
Not my guidance, the board, they're doing a good job. Julie Rocky does a very good job with her pension.
I don't know if you see it lately, 12.1. I should remember it back in 3 to 4.
Was I born then?
No.
Yes.
Trick or treating for the city?
So as I mentioned as part of that discussion, just broaching the subject about that October 31st falls on a Saturday. Is there a recommendation or a feeling about whether to allow door-to-door trick-or-treating? And then I was also going to mention about the Degenstein Library doing their Boo Bash as a curbside drive-up, having tables set up in their parking lot and allowing families to drive up to each table to receive a treat. And of course, they would still require masks, gloves, and social distancing. So this is more of a open-ended conversation, or what your thoughts are?
Yeah, so I think there's no legal ramification.
We can't tell anybody they can't go to their next door neighbor with their costume on. There's no way to legally stop people from doing trick or treating. We cannot sponsor it. We can not say October 31st is trick or treat night in the city of Sunbury. But we certainly can't say no kids can go trick or treating this year. I don't know what the thing is for Halloween, but it'd be somewhat like a Grinch. So point being, we can't stop it. We can just say either we endorse it or we don't, in my legal opinion.
So if we endorse it, are we up for any type of legal? No.
It's the same routine as it was before. They have some restrictions as far as if the light's not on, you don't knock on the doors. and
Sure.
stuff like
Yeah, just, you put out some
Yeah, I'm
stuff
gonna-
on the
It's not a voting item.
It's just a discussion.
The only other thing I did take notice of when we were talking earlier with the fire police and Mary Collier and Brad, the idea that the city, quote unquote, is going to provide through the fire service a venue for children and their parents and cars to come through and pick up candy. it's a little tiny bit iffy for me because there's lots of people in the city of Sunbury who don't own cars. And there's lots of children in the city of Sunbury whose parents don't own cars. You may want to consider, because this is a discussion item, I'm bringing it up now, you may want to consider an alternate source of something for those children whose parents are unable to take them through Walnut Street in a car.
I think that falls back onto them to kind of figure it out, only because that's their event.
Well, and it doesn't have to be the same event. I'm just saying that's something somebody ought to think about.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, these other, you say the Vegas team's doing the one, which is open for everybody.
I don't know if there's a drive-through, it's gonna come out of the trucks.
Trunk or treats.
Well, somebody, I heard somebody else was ready to fire company, was going to do one of the truck things up at the plaza on 4th Street.
That's entirely possible. I just wouldn't want to have anybody say that we're discriminating against families of underprivileged
I
children.
think all we did tonight is like we just said, that we're not stopping the fire police from having their event.
I agree.
Whatever other entities do is kind of on that.
Hey, a word to the wise is sufficient. I get it. That's all I have on that.
Like that's just updating you, I had a discussion with Victoria Rosencrantz today. We talked a little bit about possible options for a Santa parade, whether or not be Santa stationary on a fire truck and people drive by and wave or walk by and wave and say hello. As far as the Santa house, she was saying how definitely not going to be having sitting on Santa's lap, but opportunity with appropriate precautions for a picture with Santa. But we discussed about a lot of things, and she's going to develop a proposed plan for council to review at the next meeting, if that's all right.
Okay. Councilman Reese, bonfire.
Yeah, I think this is mostly taken care of, but I want Joel's opinion on this with the, so I was approached and Jim was approached from Slade wanting to have a bonfire around homecoming, I'm guessing it is. Yeah, do a bonfire and do a flag football game. Not on school property like it normally is, but rather he originally approached about the ball fields, but then Brad Wertz had mentioned doing it down at the fire training grounds. My only concern on it, Joel, and I don't know if it is a concern still, is the amount of people attending.
It's almost moot at this point because, as you all know, there was a determination today by, I think you all know, the federal judge that Governor Wolf's mandate limiting or restricting people who may gather in places was thrown out.
It was, but we would just say earlier, because I remember we were talking about another thing that it came into. We don't know what's going to happen.
We don't know what's going to happen. That's what I'm saying.
So we're allowing it on city property with the event that it may change.
For now, it's moot, but, well, no. What I'm,
But it's leased by the fire. And I don't know, that's something I don't know the answer. I don't know if that's leased by the fire department, if it's leased by the city. I don't know.
It's leased by the fire department.
It's leased by the fire department.
It's leased by the fire department through whoever the owner of the new owner.
So Joel, do you see any issue at all?
What's that?
I was asking Joel.
as long as Glen Raven doesn't have, there's no problem for the city.
They said he's already clear to do that.
Yeah, Glen Raven's gonna give him a letter allowing permission to do it.
As far as I'm concerned, there's no issue citywide, you know, as long as it's.
There will be insurance also.
Right, and I remember Slade, Chris Reese had already told me that, and I was about to bring that up. Slade's,
Okay.
no, but thank you for reminding me, so I didn't forget. Slade's gonna obtain an insurance policy naming everybody as an indemnified party such that there'll be certain coverages so that we don't have to worry about that either.
Do you think he needs to name the city?
I don't,
So why is the school not allowing this on their grounds?
because they couldn't, because of the 250. And it didn't happen on school property before, I don't think. Wasn't the bonfire on the lake side of the fence?
It was, yes.
I'm sorry, Slade, what'd you say?
Yes, it was on the dike side.
Yeah, I thought. The fire itself, I think, was not on school property necessarily before. It may have been on city property. But the gathering itself would have been on school property, which would have been legal under or not illegal, but at least recommended against under the authority of the school previously.
And,
So that's why they're looking at not doing it on school property.
Chief Woods was one recommended Fireground because they can easily start it and put it out right there.
Right.
So
There's no danger.
you don't need to do anything voting, it's not a city matter.
You got it.
I received an email, I provided you all a copy of the Lewisburg ordinance for the human relations that they were trying to pass previously. One of our residents here in the city emailed me this, asking us to look into this, and I'm bringing it to the council to see if there's any input from the public or the council members regarding whether or not the city should look into something similar.
Started skimming it with you.
That's just so you all can have the information there.
Payroll tax deferment.
All I know about this is we never heard anything from federal government on tax deferment. But what I do know about it is if you decide to take this as deferment, you are obligated to pay it back by August 15th of 2021 in full, not it's going to cost you a penalty. Everybody I talk to in the city that does not want it, so everybody wants it will cross that bridge when they come to me, but I have no guidance from the feds on this whatsoever.
But we're going to ensure that the employees have the adequate information regarding if they choose to accept this, what may happen.
They know just as much as I do because I'm hearing it on the TV and radio myself. You know? That's how we learn. We have got nothing from the feds on it whatsoever. Besides, if you do take it, and you must pay it back by April 15th of 2021. And it's an average between $65 to $80 in pay for Social Security.
Does it, because I was reading a couple of reports, is there any chance that it would fall back on the organization itself, if that employee is no longer employed by the organization?
Kurt, I have no clue. Honestly, I think I probably talked to you the other day about it. Told you what I know. I don't know if Joel or any more on it or.
I don't know anything
The
about it.
information is very sporadic out there coming from.
You might have it.
anything.
I can track your social security number. Won't come back to us. You as an employee.
You're gonna be responsible for it, yeah.
You make the decision, I want to defer.
But if the organization is holding back those taxes for the employee, I would assume.
Okay, it goes
Goes against third because it's going on their paycheck.
in their paycheck. We're not holding the money. They're getting.
They were just not taking it off of them and it's being added on their paycheck.
It's probably one of their 2021 income tax. They don't.
You just take it off from there.
Which, yeah, which when we send in, you know, the W.
They
things
got
that's
higher
gonna-
income.
Yeah, the higher income is going to be reported as a lower payment into it, which that's, I heard of nobody who wants it, so.
All right, grant writer report.
Okay, so in your packets are the detailed spreadsheets on the grant writing activities for the city. These are now 1 month old. These were supposed to be presented on the 24th of August. Another report from him is due. It's always going to be due on the 4th Monday of the month. A report from the grant writer, similar to this format. I asked him to provide this detail about exactly what grants. There'll be dates when they have been submitted and the amounts for which they have been submitted for. And of course, there was a work session immediately prior where you had the opportunity to speak to the grant writer. He will be having a monthly meeting with me the 3rd Tuesday of every month so that he and I can discuss what's going on prior to the 4th council on the 4th Monday. I did also create a project management worksheet to track the city projects that we're looking for funding by grants, especially the streets projects. And then we had a work session just prior to this regarding the capital campaign fundraising.
Right, your administrator report.
All right, so the city administrator, the position was established by council by ordinance adopted in April 2006. There was a job description written using that ordinance as a basis. And the council had a 2-year contract with current city administrator. which ends in January 2021, which is just 4 months away. So now the time has come to consider where we are and the way forward. So for the mayor and the distinguished members of council, I prepared the following written statement regarding the city administrator position and the ongoing transition to full implementation of the position's duties and responsibilities as defined in third-class city code, city ordinance number 1249, the job description, and the employment agreement. Third-class city code, chapter 112A, provides the legal basis for establishment of a city administrator position by council. Ordinance number 1249, adopted by unanimous vote of the city council in 2006, established the city administrator position for the city of Sunbury. Although it was filled briefly, the position was vacated prior to the role being fully realized. It remained vacant for several years and business went on as usual, with councilmen administering individual departments as department heads. In 2018, the council proceeded to make efforts to hire a city administrator. The position was advertised and a position description was written, identifying 24 duties and responsibilities. Having retired from the Air Force in December of 2017, I had no intention of seeking full-time employment, and certainly not at an executive level. I wanted a stress-free quality of life, working on my house, taking road trips on a motorcycle, and traveling the world. However, after about 9 months of this, I was bored. So I was looking for a way to contribute to my community. I encountered the mayor one day and asked him if there were any boards or committees where I could be of service. He mentioned the opening for the city administrator position. I looked at the job description on the website and thought my experience in command and executive leadership in the military would be directly applicable to the duties and responsibilities of the position. I applied. I was interviewed by all council members. I was offered the job. An employment agreement was worked out. I was hired by unanimous vote. The employment agreement was approved by unanimous vote. I committed myself to ensuring the success of the position as it was being newly established and instituted. The City Council, by unanimous action, expressed its intention to fully implement the role of the city administrator in the proper and efficient administration of city affairs as delineated in the job description and as set forth in the employment agreement. The term of the employment agreement began January 14th, 2019 and ends in just 4 months, January 13th, 2021. It is time to consider where we are and the way forward to fulfill the council's intent. With respect to the 24 duties and responsibilities identified in the job description, I wish to point out that the ordinance specifies 10, the 10th being perform such other duties as may be designated by the city council. I have done my best to fulfill all of them. However, it must be said that the scope of the job is very large and challenging for one person to accomplish all of it well, especially without the full support of the council and necessary structure in the organization. All in all, I believe a great deal of progress has been made for the city from the city administrator position. I consider proper and efficient administration of city affairs to be the fundamental purpose of the city administrator position. In circumstances too numerous to mention, I have found that practices have not been in line with written ordinances. Practices evolved over time as decisions were made by various department heads over decades to the point that it is difficult to trace why we do what we do. When I ask, the answer is almost always, I've always done it this way. I have researched and untangled many of those processes, researched Pennsylvania law, practices in other municipalities, and consulted with the solicitor in order to put proper guidance in place. The city clerk and city administrator continue to work hand in hand to organize and improve front office operations, including human resource management, record keeping, insurance claims, council meetings, compliance with Sunshine Act and Right to Know law, ordinance adoption, grant management, management of funds, and the list goes on. The city administrator is to direct and supervise the administration of all departments and functions of the city. I have cultivated an interdepartment cooperation and communication to improve collaboration and operational efficiency. For example, with Code and DPW working together, there is now a process in place for maintaining nuisance properties and remediating blight and other property maintenance issues. Develop and implement economic and marketing plan for the city, perform all public relations and marketing as needed to further develop the city, develop a social networking plan for the city. These are very ambitious tasks for the city administrator. I reopened the city's comprehensive plan, engaged with DCED, established the Sunbury Community Partnership Forum, and strengthened networking relationships with the Chamber of Commerce, United Way, School District, Lackawanna College, community leaders, and foundations. I began putting together a marketing campaign called Think Sunbury. I acquired the rights for the use of the logo, created a page on the city website, all groundwork for a robust campaign to attract businesses and residents that will improve the tax base and quality of life. I created a Facebook page with nearly 2,500 followers. I monitor the page and other pages for citizen complaints so that they can be addressed. I worked with a consultant to develop the city's new website. As the page administrator, I added content and continue to add content. I established a city YouTube channel for recordings of council meetings and public service announcements. I have worked with our state officials and congressmen on city affairs, including the closure of UPMC and the textile mill. I am working with the developer who owns the former bakery to support development of that site. I am also engaged with a development consultant on possible uses and development of other properties. I have written for and won over $200,000 in private grant funds. Many improvements have been made at the Youth and Community Center, which is a vital institution of the community. I chaired the police department building committee, and we finally have a site selected. I am co-chairing the 250th anniversary Heart and Heritage Festival. One thing that is consuming a great deal of my time that is not specified in the job description is codification. The task was assigned to me as if it were a fairly straightforward thing to organize. In the beginning, I set up meetings with councilmen in pairs to go through the editorial and legal analysis together. I was told, quote, Terry and a solicitor did this the last time. I then went through the analysis myself and then set up several work sessions with council that were productive. But by and large, the task has been on my shoulders. The task has involved reviewing the entire city code, identifying discrepancies, outdated language, and answering the 75 pages of questions posed by the editorial and legal analysis. The process has resulted in over 150 minor revisions and 16 major revisions and new ordinances. There is one last and significant factor in my tenure to highlight, that is COVID-19. Since early March, I have been responsible for gathering information, interpreting guidance from multiple sources, establishing policies, educating employees, and adjusting city operations to deal with the pandemic. I had the burden to figure out how to continue essential city government operations and preserve public participation in government. I received very little in the form of support or ideas from elected officials. With respect to specific expectations identified in the employment agreement, the assessment is as follows, and I'm paraphrasing. A, the executive will work 40 hours a week and may work more or less hours in a week in accordance with the demands of her job. I have fulfilled this expectation, working often more than 40 hours per week, including evenings, weekends, and occasionally while on vacation as needed. B, the executive shall have regular office hours for the purpose of providing service to the general public. I fulfilled this expectation by establishing and posting regular office hours for public walk-ins. In general, the public has been able to walk in or call at any time, and if I'm available, I speak with them. C, the executive shall be available on call relative to city emergencies. I am not aware of any emergency situation during which I was not immediately available when called. D, the executive shall be provided with city-owned phone and laptop. City fulfilled this expectation. E, after the completion of 6 months, the executive shall be the decision maker relative to day-to-day operations of all city departments, and all department supervisors will be required to direct their operational questions to the executive. The parties understand and agree that the executive decisions may be overturned only by and through a public vote of the city council if requested by the specific council member assigned as the department head, and that the executive may and shall consult as necessary with the department head. This expectation has not been fulfilled across all departments. F, the executive shall be entitled and subject to a feedback type evaluation by each member of city council after her first 6 months of employment and annually thereafter, and a full evaluation by each member of city council after her first year of employment and annually thereafter during the term of her employment. This expectation has not been fulfilled. Feedback packets were provided to each council member in July of 2019. There was an executive session to discuss feedback. I was excluded from the room for an hour while council members discussed among themselves. When I was invited into the room, one council member departed. The only feedback I received was that I, quote, talked down to people. There was nothing constructive provided for me to act upon, no suggestions for improved performance, nothing to direct me to apply more effort here and less effort there. January came and went without an annual evaluation. In July of this year, an executive session was scheduled. Unfortunately, not all council members were present. I was once again excused from the room for an anticipated 5 minutes. When that turned into 20 minutes, I entered the room and expressed to the council members present my desire to not have a repeat of the last feedback session. I also provided feedback to council about the challenges with fulfilling my job responsibilities as set forth in the job description and the council's lack of commitment and support for the successful implementation of the position and the council's failure to meet the expectations of the employment agreement. I apologize if anyone has felt I have talked down to them. It is never my intention to belittle anyone. However, I have certain expectations of people who are in a position of responsibility or leadership and become frustrated when they are unable to articulate what they do and why beyond, we've always done it this way, or 20 years ago, this or that happened. I have been told, no need to change anything here, and don't fix what ain't broke, only to discover practices that are not supported by current written policies and ordinances and that are lacking in transparency and accountability. This is frustrating, but fixable if everyone is on board. It must be recognized that the establishment of a city administrative position represents a significant change to the municipal organization and the way city affairs have been conducted for decades. Organizational change is difficult. It takes deliberate, unified effort to successfully make change across an organization, and it takes time. The goal to transition fully in 6 months was likely too ambitious. However, we must agree on continuing to work toward it. One of the most significant limiting factors to successful transition is the lack of a shared vision of the position and expectations of performance. This has led to variation in the implementation of the role across departments. While one department head is comfortable to allow the city administrator to direct operations, relying on the administrator to keep them informed, another does not allow any action without his personal consent, which leads to operational inefficiency, unclear lines of supervision, and frustrated employees who feel caught in the middle. With regard to variation in performance expectations, I have been subjected to toxic pettiness and vindictiveness from councilmen who don't share the same understanding of the job as others. Another significant challenge to successful transition to the new way of doing things is, quote, building the airplane while flying it. Time does not stand still to wait for me to learn everything there is to know about the job and city operations. Without a predecessor, there is no one to tell me how the role of city administrator should be done. I have networked with others and find that there is a variation among municipalities. Mistakes have been made and will be made in the future. That's why it is so important for everyone to be committed to success, to work as a team to ensure nothing falls through the cracks or is done inappropriately. That means communicating regularly, working together to find solutions, and providing support when things go wrong. I have no tolerance for anyone throwing me or any other employee under the bus while not offering any ideas to be part of the solution. All of these challenges can lead to chaos in transition, which is not good for any organization. So we need to focus on those things that will calm the chaos and lead to a successful transition and an efficient, effective organization. These include structure, process, and communication that stabilize operations. Structure is the organization of departments. A supervisor for each department, the right number and mix, part-time and full-time of employees, and job descriptions for each. The organization needs to be designed to accomplish the workload required. Currently, too much is organized ad hoc. Once established, the structure will allow for a certain number and array of positions in each department, and hiring will only be into established positions. Process begins with the source authority, the ordinance or policy that provides the authority or basis for taking the action or doing the work. Then standard operating procedures are needed to ensure employees are trained, tasks are done right, and employees can be held accountable, none of which will work without the discipline to follow the procedures. There must be clear lines of communication and supervision. Expectations must be agreed upon and consistent across departments. The city administrator, department supervisor, and department head should form the leadership triad for each department. Feedback should be constructive and lead to improved performance. It is completely inappropriate for any council member to belittle or degrade any employee. Upon arrival to my position in January 2019, I observed the incredibly loyal and dedicated employees doing the best they can with the resources they have been given under the present leadership. It is evident to me that they are undervalued, and excluded from operational decision-making. Valued, empowered employees are vital to a high-performing organization. The municipal organization itself was stovepiped, with each department acting independently under the department head. I observed a lack of cooperation and collaboration across departments, antiquated management styles, lack of leadership, personal grudges, low productivity, and very little data to drive sound decisions. To continue in the old ways of how we have always done it for 5 decades will result in wasted money and resources across the board. If the councilmen are serious in their commitment to be good stewards of taxpayer money, much change is needed. The city administrator position is the keystone to that change. Participation in the STAMP program is on the near horizon. I believe this is essential to assessing where the city is financially and operationally. The outcome of the initial assessment, which should take approximately 6 months, will be telling. There will be recommendations to move the city forward to improve operational efficiency and financial management. Again, the city administrator will be the central point of contact for following through to implement recommendations. I hope the council will be actively engaged with vigorous commitments and support. In the next year, the city leadership should focus on implementation of the updated ordinances. Employees will need training. Standard operating procedures need to be put in place. Other city policies need to be updated as well, including the employee manual and hiring processes. There needs to be a purchasing policy put in place to support a more precise budget and spending priorities. There needs to be a capital asset management program so that necessary improvements can be anticipated and funded. A city administrator is necessary to ensure follow-up on these endeavors and to ensure compliance once policies are established. As a city administrator, I am the senior non-elected city official. I am not kid or dear. I am not the girl you hired for the front office to just do whatever I'm told. I bring with me 28 years of experience from a career in which I was extremely successful in leading people and organizations, every step of the way being groomed and prepared for the next level. There is no need for anyone to tell me this is not the military. I am well aware. That said, I think everyone should be aware that the military trains personnel and leadership based on successful models in the civilian sector, including employee empowerment, safety, continuous quality improvement, Lean Six Sigma, and high-performance organization as used by corporations such as Toyota, Porsche, Kaiser Permanente, and Geisinger. The environment may be different, but the principles proven in industry remain the same. These are the leadership methods I have learned and demonstrated in my military career. I don't appreciate being undermined or shouted at in person or ranted about behind my back. One councilman claims not to be a micromanager, yet micromanages what I'm doing by finding fault and making judgments without speaking to me directly and giving me a chance to explain or correct if necessary. Another simply ghosts me if ever there is a difference of opinion or conflict or just anything to be avoided. This is poor behavior in any organization, unbecoming to anyone in a leadership position, and counterproductive operationally. When I accepted the position, I indicated that I would stay in the position as long as I felt it was a good fit for myself and the council. Being a good fit would mean that my approach and my ability to fulfill the responsibilities of the position fit well with the council's intent, goals, and expectations for the position. In light of my experience over the past 20 months, it is my conclusion that the fit is not good. I would perhaps come to a different conclusion if I perceived my experience, actions, and approach were valued and welcomed by the council. At this time, I encourage the council to begin looking for a replacement immediately. At council's discretion, I will fulfill the remainder of my term of employment, continuing to work to the same level of intensity as I have been until a well-qualified candidate can be found and hired. Furthermore, I would consider working month to month after my term of employment if requested until a new hire is in place. I will do my utmost to ensure there is a smooth transition because I am adamant that a strong city administrator is absolutely vital for the proper administration of city affairs, is in the best interest of Sunbury's residents, and is the best value for taxpayers. Here ended my statement.
Police officer applications are being accepted to create a hiring eligibility list. Submission deadline is September 18th at 4 p.m. The last Music in the Park is tomorrow night from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. It's the West Branch Chorus. Next Heart and Heritage 250th anniversary meeting is September 24th, 6 p.m. National Night Out is scheduled for October 6th. It's canceled. Fireman's Memorial Parade Saturday, October 11th. Parade starts at 1:30 p.m. and the ceremony at 2 p.m. The next council meeting is via Zoom and Facebook Live, September 28th at 6:15 p.m. Are there any public comments at this time? I'll say that again. Is there any public comments at this time? Facebook,
He has one.
Here's one comment from the Zoom chat, which states, "It's all about trust and moving forward. Times change and Sunbury needs to move with the changes. There are great people working for the city. Everyone needs to work together and make Sunbury a great place that people want to come to. We have so much to offer, a beautiful skate park, a river, and new businesses coming to the downtown. Keep Sunbury moving forward." I think Jody has done a great job, and maybe you can make some changes so she would stay. She has done her best to make Sunbury better.
I agree.
any other audience comments? There's a line to take on to you.
Megan Beck states, "Thank you, Jody, for your great work on behalf of the city."
Do you see anything else?
No.
All right, this meeting's now adjourned. Thank you all for coming out.